Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. Today I'm going to talk about two very likable scents from the house of Khadlaj. One of them you can call a clone or a fragrance that's heavily inspired by a famous niche fragrance, and the other one is an original Khadlaj creation that feels sort of like a Frankenstein type of scent that mixes up a few very famous different DNAs. The inspired by or the clone fragrance is called Infini, and this one is a fragrance that's cloning or it's heavily inspired by none other than Creed Aventus, and the other one, the original creation, is called Shiaka Blue. I'm going to start by talking about the Infini fragrance from the house of Khadlaj, and as usual I'm going to quickly go over the packaging, the presentation and the bottle design of the fragrance. But unfortunately one day my son was playing with the box of Infini, and this is the end result. But this is how the actual bottle looks. I'm sorry that I'm showing you a torn up box, but this is how the bottle looks, the box looks. It's a pretty sort of simplistic presentation. The production date here, if you are interested, is January of 2024, so it's a sort of a recent bottle. Once you take out the bottle, this is how the bottle looks. It has a sort of an okayish design. The cap is plastic, but feels like having quite a lot of heft and maybe even having a sort of a metallic coating. You get some Khadlaj also branding here on the top. It's a 100 milliliter bottle size and EDP concentration. The note breakdown, at least per Khadlaj's official website of Infini, has the following notes. The top notes are bergamot, apple and pineapple, the middle notes are patchouli and cardamom, and the base notes are dry birch and vetiver. I'll show you the sprayer in action and then I'll talk about the actual scent of Infini from the house of Khadlaj. The sprayer is actually, alright, pretty good. Now this fragrance has gained a bit of traction, mainly because a lot of people call this like a smokier version or a smokier alternative to Creed Aventus. And it does indeed feel quite a bit more smoky compared to the original Creed Aventus, especially the current formulations of Creed Aventus that you can get. It opens up quite smoky with a bit of freshness from the bergamot, and the other citruses that have been used here. There isn't much sweetness in the opening of this fragrance, although I pick up a hint of sort of blackcurrant sweetness as well, but it doesn't feel like super sweet. It feels more like a bitter type of blackcurrant note that has been used in here, and this kind of reminds me of Afnan's Supremacy, not only intense, just a little bit in the opening of this fragrance. And also the woodsy notes in here feel quite strong right from the get-go. It feels more smokier compared to Creed Aventus and less sweet and less fruity in the opening. Once this fragrance starts to go into the dry down, that sort of a strong smoky opening starts to lose a bit of its strength, bit by bit. And when this fragrance reaches the final stages of the dry down, the smokiness is nowhere near as strong as it's in the opening. Still though, it feels quite smoky on the dry down as well. But on the dry down you also get quite a lot more sweetness compared to the opening. On the dry down there's a sort of a vanillic and amber sweetness to go along with the smoky vibes that you get out in the opening, along with some fruity sweetness somewhere in the background. All in all, this is sort of an interesting take on the Creed Aventus DNA. It feels more smoky, it feels more woody and less sweet in the opening, and then on the dry down again it feels slightly more smoky, slightly more woody, but also woodsy, and also feels quite a bit sweeter on the dry down. It's a very interesting transformation. It's not a straight up clone, it's more like inspired by fragrance. All in all, it's not a one-to-one clone, it's not super close, but it definitely carries that famous DNA, if you are familiar with the original fragrance. When it comes to performance, it's nothing crazy, nothing spectacular, but at the same time it's quite a decent performing fragrance. I've been getting above average performance out of this one, with probably around about the 7 hours when it comes to total longevity, and the first hour and a half being quite strong when it comes to projection. And now onto the price tag. I've paid about 22-23 euros, which will translate into something like $25, and this is probably one one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest Creed Aventus clone in my collection. And when it comes to versatility like the original fragrance, this is a super versatile fragrance that can be worn pretty much all year round for any type of occasion. And now moving on to the second, Khadlaj fragrance that I'm going to show you talk about in today's video. That's called Shiaka Blue. It comes packaged in this mainly blue colored box with silver accents. Again, on the front you got the name of the fragrance, the name of the company, the concentration, which is EDP, the bottle size, again 100 milliliters. You get some additional branding on the top and on the back. The production date here is again January of 2024, so another pretty recent bottle. And one interesting touch is the fact that the note breakdown has been included by Khadlaj on the back of the fragrance box itself, and it has the following notes. The top notes are aromatic notes, citruses and green notes. The middle notes are floral notes, iris and rose, and the base notes are amber, musk and vanilla. I'll show the spray of Shiaka Blue in action, and then again I'll talk about the scent of this fragrance. Again, another very good spray. In fact, I think it's slightly better than the Infinity that I just talked about earlier. Now onto the scent of this fragrance. As I said, this scent is not a direct clone of anything. It's more like a unique creation from the house of Khadlaj, and at the same time feels like a Frankenstein type of scent, because it feels close to quite a few different scents, famous scents. The opening here is quite fresh. You definitely get the citrusy opening. There's a bergamot note in here. There's something that's even more fresher, like a lime note maybe, or a lemon note that adds even more citrusy freshness in the opening of this fragrance. It also feels a little bit green and spicy, and then also feels quite sweet and woodsy at the same time. There's quite a lot of ambery sweetness in this fragrance right from the get-go, and also quite a lot of woodsy feel again in the opening. When this starts to dry down, it's an interesting fragrance because it changes and transforms itself quite a bit from the opening to the mid-dry down until it reaches the final dry down. In the mid-dry down of this fragrance, the sweetness starts to become stronger and stronger. And that's where this fragrance becomes quite similar to something else. I'll talk about that in a second. But the mid-dry down is where you start to lose the freshness from the opening. The lavender note starts to gain a little bit more strength, and the amber note becomes really strong in the mid-dry down of this fragrance. And then when you reach the final stages of the dry down, the final stages of the life of this fragrance, it becomes mostly predominantly sweet. The amber note is probably the main note on the dry down. Maybe there's a hint of vanillic sweetness as well on the dry down in here that are mixed with the woodsy notes. And on the deep dry down, this feels like a very bluish scent, very sort of a shower jelly type of scent. All in all, it's a very interesting creation from the house of Khadlaj. Feels quite unique, at the same time very reminiscent of a few different famous scents out there, and it's a pretty easy to wear, pretty likable fragrance. When it comes to what this is close to or what this is similar to, in the opening you get a hint of Bleu de Chanel, the EDT version, in my opinion. You get that woodsy, slightly fresh citrusy opening from Bleu de Chanel, but that's accompanied with quite a bit of sweetness. So it's not super close to Bleu de Chanel, but it's definitely somewhat familiar to Bleu de Chanel. In the mid-dry down of this fragrance, this is where, to my nose, this feels very close to Jean Paul Gaultier's Scandal per Homme. The amount of ambery sweetness that comes across so strong that feels almost like a caramel type of sweetness is where, in that mid-dry down, this fragrance, to my nose, feels very similar to Jean Paul Gaultier's Scandal per Homme. And then on the dry down, this is where it becomes quite unique and unlike any other fragrance that I've tried. That's when, the vanillic, the amber sweetness and the cedar wood, those woodsy notes are mixed up together, and then it feels like its own creation, a very bluish type of creation. So again, a very interesting scent, very interesting creation from the house of Khadlaj. When it comes to performance, this has been a very good performer. In fact, considering the bluish type of scent profile that this carries, I've been getting about 8 hours of performance out of this fragrance with a pretty nice projection in the first about 2 hours. The price tag, this one again costs like the first one that I showed you, costs about 25 euros here in Europe, which will make it close to $30 in the US. But I still think this is a very good price tag, considering of how versatile of a scent profile you're getting with a pretty decent performance. And then when it comes to the versatility. Like Infinity that I just showed you, this is another fantastically versatile fragrance that can be worn pretty much all year round without any problem. And on to my final thoughts about Infinity and Shiaka Blue, both from the House of Khadlaj. Both of them, as I said in the opening of this video, are very likable scents, very easy to wear, very versatile scents. Both of them I actually like quite a lot. I find only one problem with Infinity, and that's the fact that it copies an original DNA, you know, the Creed Aventus DNA, which has been cloned to death at this point, and that's why this may feel a little bit redundant. But at the same time, if you don't already own a clone of Creed Aventus, then you can check out Infinity from the House of Khadlaj, because it has like an interesting twist on the original DNA. In the opening it feels a little bit more smoky, and then on the dry down feels a little bit you know, sweeter compared to Creed Aventus. It's very easy to wear, very versatile, has very decent performance, and you know, quite an affordable price tag. And all in all, as a scent on its own, it's actually very nicely done. Again, the only problem that I have with Infinity is the fact that it may feel redundant in today's world of so many Creed Aventus clones. When it comes to Shiaka Blue, this fragrance is a sort of a unique Frankenstein creation from Khadlaj. It incorporates a few different DNAs. It feels somewhat similar to Bleu de Chanel in the opening. On the mid-dry down it feels similar to Scandal Per Homme from Jean-Paul Gaultier, and then on the final stages of its life it's a very bluish, very sweet and easy to wear fragrance. Again, super versatile with even better performance than Infinity, and all around a very likable and easy to wear fragrance that has a pretty affordable price tag. All in all, both fragrances get a big like from me because I think they're very likable and easy to wear. And so guys, in today's video I showed you two very likable scents from the House of Khadlaj. Infinity, a more smokier take on the Creed Aventus DNA, and Shiaka Blue, a very unique blue type of scent from the House of Khadlaj. I hope that you found this video interesting. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me in the next one. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.